Welcoming back into the podcast from Equitable Advisors, Jason Harris. Jason, thanks for joining us today.
Happy to be here, Doug, and happy birthday.
It is my birthday as we record the interview here today. Halfway to 90, so I've got that going for me.
Woohoo!
Yes. All right. So we are here to talk. I like to revisit this topic from time to time, that being networking. Certainly, as a chamber of commerce, that's one of the primary services that we can provide the business community as a way to get in front of each other. But then when you get in front of each other, what do you do? And then what do you do if you can't always be in front of people? We're going to tackle all that today. But Jason, I wanted to have you on board with this because you have been very active member of the Chamber of Commerce here, despite not being in Findlay, which I think gives you a unique perspective on how to do networking when you can't always be in a place. That wasn't a question. Absolutely. That was really a long statement. So I'm allowed to ask a bad question on my birthday, apparently. Let's talk a little bit about how you leverage remote capabilities, things like that, when you're trying to make sure that you're in front of a business community that maybe is several miles away. What are some of the things that you do to make sure that you're a presence in that community?
I think some of that comes with time and experience. I think as anybody who's developing their craft, just like you put all the time and effort and energy and training into learning your business, learning your craft, you need to do the same thing with networking. And it really comes down to being able to brand yourself, but also being able to make those deep connections and relationships with those that are kind of like-minded, but also maybe have some of the synergies with your business. You know, being an advisor, I have a lot of synergies with accountants, attorneys. It could be business owners because my niche is kind of working with business owners. So it could be a connection with maybe somebody in marketing and I think if you can learn how to be an expert in networking spend as much time doing that as you do learning your craft, it'll really help you develop those centers of influence and make those deep connections. But I think it does start with a personal relationship first before a business relationship.
I think that's a really good point, and it speaks to something that we wanted to get into is, so when you talk about developing those synergies, maybe you are, for your instance, you're talking with accountants and things like that. You probably aren't making a sale with that conversation, at least not on your first conversation. And I think a lot of people go into those types of interactions like, I got to get a business card, I got to get a sale, I got to have a lead out of it. When you first started in your career, did you feel like you had to be like that? And then how did you retrain yourself?
Yeah, that is a phenomenal question, because I think when you're young and you're inexperienced and you don't have any networking experience, your first intuition is, okay, I'm going to hand you my business card and I'm going to tell you my sales pitch and I'm going to do everything I can to tell you as much about me as I can in a short amount of time. And what you realize over time is that is the completely wrong approach to take. And when it comes to networking, there are tons of videos, there are books, there are classes you can take that will teach you how to be a better networker. And for me, that starts with being interested, not interesting. So I take the exact opposite approach. You're either a taker or a giver in that situation. And the people that just come in and take don't really get a lot out of it, don't develop good relationships. But if you go with it with the true intent of, hey, I'm not here for what's in it for me, I'm here to learn more about the person sitting in front of me and about them as a person and about their business. And then who can I help connect them to? Is there an opportunity for me to help their business, knowing that I may get nothing in return out of this? And I think when you lead with those intentions, you'll make much more meaningful connections than if you just go in there trying to sales pitch somebody rather than actually making a genuine interest or making a genuine connection.
It's almost, back in the day, there was always the phrase, I know a guy. I suppose we would say, I know someone now, to be a little more inclusive, which makes sense. But you want to be that someone that people can rely on to, you know what, I don't know how to solve that, but you know what, I know someone who might be able to help you with that. And then as those connections start to grow, I think it all starts to flow back to you. And I think that's what you're alluding to there.
Absolutely. Yes. If you can be a connector, and you have to be relevant, and you have to be showing up consistently. You can't just show up to one event, hand out a bunch of business cards, and expect, business to come from it. It's kind of like farming, right? We're a big agricultural area. You have to plant the seed, nurture the seed, constantly water and maintain the seed, and eventually it will grow, but it's not going to happen instantaneously. And part of that networking works the same way. You have to plant that seed and nourish it. And that means showing up to events and being relevant, and being engaged, but being genuine and being a person first. And then if you can make those connections and help somebody in their business, they'll remember you forever, and it'll come back to you eventually tenfold.
I always find that, and this could just be anecdotal in my case, but I feel like having a little knowledge about a lot of subjects really leans itself towards conversations. I don't know that I'm an expert in anything, but I know that I can talk about a lot of different subjects, whether it's the NBA playoffs or computer tech or pro wrestling or anything like that. I've got a little something on all of those because but again, it's not necessarily me like, oh, I got to know these things. I truly am interested in a lot of different subjects, even pro wrestling.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think if it doesn't always have to be business related, I think if you're a parent, there's a lot of commonality we could have, even though we're not in the same industry. We're both parents, we both have children. There's a lot we can talk about even from that aspect. So it doesn't always have to be about work.
You mentioned that there's lots of books on the subjects, things like that. Are there any resources that you recommend that have been helpful for you in learning to network? And again, highlighting Jason here because Jason works out of the Perrysburg area, but is very familiar to many of our Chamber of Commerce members because I think you've just been you do your due diligence on it. So that's why we wanted to highlight you here today. But what's helped you learn more in the subject?
Yeah. I watch a lot of TED Talks. I'm a big TED Talk fan. I enjoy those. And there was actually a couple good TED Talks just on human communications and networking. It was the kind of what they alluded to. And that's where I got that phrase or that quote, be interested, not interesting, and that, to me, that just kind of changed my mindset of how I approach a conversation to begin with somebody is, take a genuine interest in who they are, how they got to where they're at, what they're looking to try to do. And somebody will always remember somebody who helped support their business rather than somebody who criticized their business. So that's the mindset I took. And a lot of that from just, YouTube or TED Talks.
So in your day to day, obviously you have a lot of conversations with people, and we've alluded to the issue when you just come in there looking for the sale. Do you see that you kind of talked about it being, when you're young and maybe just first getting into your job, you think of it that way. But sometimes I feel like there's an old school mentality of business owners or sales managers who have that, hey, you're going out to this, you better bring back X amount of leads. And I feel like they burn through a lot of employees that way because it more and more doesn't work that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. If you're an owner and you're sending your sales staff or your people, your marketing people, your business development people to a networking event expecting results out of that event, I think you're coming at it with the wrong approach. And you need to realize networking is more of the long play game. If you want instant sales gratification, you'd be better off buying social media ads or doing some targeted marketing rather than networking.
Yeah, but I feel like you fill up that funnel a lot better when you develop those relationships. So there's a patience that comes along with it, but sometimes it's tough to be patient in business, and we certainly understand that. I want to talk about the time investment into it because I think aside from the approach, that's the other area where people are a little apprehensive is just like, I don't have time to be in front of people. And a lot of times that's true. A lot, like a lot of our restaurant owners, a lot of our retail owners, they can't get out of the storefront to necessarily be in front of people. What advice do you have for them?
Yeah, that I can completely relate and understand to that. And I can even, when I was young and just learning how to network, I would overcommit. I would go to too many events, or I would
Mhm.
waste too much time spending on networking. So I think for those people, they need to figure out, if is there somebody that can do my job for maybe an hour or two, so I can attend maybe one event a quarter. That's, I know that that's not going to work for everybody, but if you could make just one event a quarter, even if it's, the fresh brew business, or you can make some event, some sort of net speed networking, something to start developing relationships. And even if it's not it within, say, the normal business hours, maybe there's an organization that you could be part of, that you'll find some synergies or some commonalities, like Rotary International, or
Mhm.
maybe there's some special organization that's close to you personally because it's impacted your life. Spending time doing that, those are great networking opportunities. You get to make real connections with people that share some common interests with you. Some of my best connections have come from outside business related stuff. It's been more personally driven, and you make deep, meaningful connections in those events.
Kids sporting events, just all of the kids sporting
Yeah.
events, talking to people. It's funny because you don't think about it. Like, I'm not out there trying to sign people up for chamber memberships at high school soccer games, but I definitely can tell people about what we're doing if they ask, and just always learn a little bit more about what they're doing in their business, that type of thing. Uh, One piece of advice that we've heard people talk about, and I'm curious your take on it, is again, when you're struggling with the time for it, is just hopping on social media and supporting other local businesses by hopping on, like, oh, had a great experience at this restaurant, or had a great experience in this store the other day. um, you might not get that face to face, but I think business owners recognize when they're being supported by other business owners or other leaders in the business community.
Yeah, I agree. That's even a challenge for me. I want to do more of that. I need to do more of that. I think one of the things I really like is when the business itself sends me a reminder, whether they email me or text me, hey, please leave us a review. That helps remind me, like, yes, I do want to support your business. I need to leave a review. But anything we can do to continue to support our local organizations and our local businesses is, yeah, I think a great idea.
That's a great point. I don't think I've ever turned down the opportunity to leave a review for a business that has emailed me and asked for it, like whether it's service on our furnace at home or what have you.
Yeah.
Just that little email reminder. One, it's a great way for us to help support local businesses, but it's really a great. I mean, this goes outside the scope of networking, but it's a great way to get that Google rating up and everything else if you put that out there and ask for that. So that's, I think, a good piece of advice for any business, whether you're looking to network or not.
Yeah.
Jason, how has I'm going to say the field of networking, but how we've talked about how your approach has changed, but have you seen any changes in the way that businesses interact with each other over the course of your career, whether it be through different technologies or just a shift in attitudes? I'm always curious of the evolution of things, and especially when it comes to networking. Like I said, there's a very 1950s attitude, go get that sale. But it's evolved into something different, and I'm curious what kind of evolution you've seen in it.
Yeah, yeah, the old Glenn Gary, Glenn Ross, ABC always be closing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. There has been an evolution. I think some of it has moved to social media, some of it has moved to online, whether it's you're part of so there's actually online networking groups, there's organizations, there's associations you can join where you can keep up and follow online. But I also think that there has been a growth into individual and specific industry associations and organizations you can join. That's the one thing I learned, seeing that I do a lot of 401ks for different industries. I get invited to some of these associations, and I've learned that there is literally an association for every single job and industry
Mhm.
out there. So I think people have kind of attracted or moved in that direction where they're spending more time within their associations rather than maybe something that's a little bigger or more general. They're trying to focus there because they can relate and network with people that are in their same industry that maybe have the same challenges or face the same things they do. And they're able to bounce ideas off each other and share successes and, find out what else, what other opportunities are out there for them to grow and develop.
I know we've talked about how to do this when you are short on time, but one idea that I'll bounce off you, see what you think, is that if you're going to go to an event, budget maybe another half hour after that event so that you don't feel like you have to run away right out of it. The reason I say that is what a realization or just something that's kind of popped into my head over the last year or so here at the chamber is we have a lot of people after events who stick around. One, that I always feel good about that. I feel like maybe the chamber event landed if people want to stick around and aren't bolting for the door. But I feel like that's where those actual connections are being formed. Sure, the program is great and educational, and we hope everybody gets a lot from it. But those conversations before and after, that's actually really where you're developing that bond with a potential sale down the road, a potential lead down the road, a potential employee down the road. But you can't bolt for the door. You need to talk with someone who is at your table or something like that.
Yeah, I'm a huge proponent of blocking your calendar. And I learned this from Fresh Brewed Business is, I need to block off that half hour after that's over just for networking. Because to your point, there'll always be somebody I spark a conversation with. And that's another great tip for networking is when you show up to an event like Fresh Brewed Business and you see a table, don't immediately go rush to the table where you know a bunch of people. Move yourself outside your comfort zone and maybe sit at a table where nobody and strike up a conversation and get to know those people. That's really something I had to work on early on too, was pushing myself into the uncomfortable and sit down at a table where I knew nobody and strike up a conversation. You'd be amazed at who you meet and who you might connect or what mutual connections you may have.
Jason, it's a lot of great information. If people would want to sit down with you and talk a little bit more about how you go about networking, or if they would like some advice through Equitable Advisors, I don't know why I'm struggling with that today. It could be the 3 or 4 cups of coffee, but if they want to have a conversation with you, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, thank you. They can connect with me either on LinkedIn or social media. They can call me at 419-705-6580. Or they can connect with me at a chamber event. Love to see them.
Absolutely. Well, Jason, we appreciate your time on this for the 02nd time on the podcast. You're a reoccurring expert now, if that's the case.
A guru, yeah.
Again, thank you for your time. We always appreciate having you on.
Yeah, thank you, Doug. I appreciate the opportunity.